Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the Duelists, the Grave Wardens, and the Pumpkinheads. But before I do that, I wanted to go into a little thing I saw in my comment the other day when I made the Ensha video. And I saw this great theory that Ensha is probably just a puppet who was, maybe he was gifted to Gideon by Celavis when they were still buddies before the whole Dolores thing split the two up. A really great theory that I missed when it comes to my Ensha video. But now back to the video. So the Colosseums that dot the lands between are one of the biggest lingering mysteries. I mean, there's definitely a lot, but it's one of the ones both gameplay-wise and lore-wise that have kind of just astounded people. I mean, most people would probably have just deduced that they're going to be some type of PvP arenas and something like that, or possibly something for a future DLC or update. But one of the few things that we do know about these Colosseums is that at a certain point, the gladiators that used to fight at them were driven from it. Now, first off, I'm going to cover the Duelists and the Grave Wardens, and then I'm going to move on to the Pumpkin, I think, and save the best for last, and we'll cover the Pumpkins then. So first off, Duelists and Gladiators are like a staple when it comes to fantasy, usually, and that's mainly because that gladiators and the games like that happened in real life in ancient Rome and shit like that, so definitely a lot of that takes inspiration from real life, but most people watching probably knew that. Now, whether it's because of movies, TV shows, history itself, or video games, gladiators are generally seen as badass, and I mean, I think I subscribe to this notion because anybody who's willing to go into a ring that they know they might not walk out of is definitely pretty badass. I mean, they're also pretty crazy too, but a lot of them didn't have a choice in the matter, so that's neither here nor there. Games like the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion even let you become a gladiator for like a whole quest line. It's actually pretty fun. It's tough to say whether or not the gladiators and the duelists of the lands between were slaves or if they chose to do so willingly. We do know that the gladiators themselves wore these concealing helmets that featured a mass of innumerable snakes on top that the audience delighted over seeing get battered to bits. The use of snake imagery sort of invokes Rykard and his serpent cult, and the depraved perfumer's apron, which also features snakes and a burning tree. So generally snakes are just seen as bad and an ill omen, which is pretty common in both fantasy and real life. The snake usually gets a bad rap like that. They also wield these massive axes and hammers that are attached to chains so they can throw them and pull them back, sort of like the giant snake man in Archdragon Peak in Dark Souls 3 that possessed a chain axe. And of course, in both of these games, the chain axe is not available. You'd think they would have figured it out by now, but no. Now, it's tough to say what privileges these warriors enjoyed while they were still fighting in the games at the Colosseums, but at some point, possibly due to the shattering, or maybe after the shattering, or before the shattering, it's tough to say, but something happened that resulted in the Colosseums being shut down and the warriors and gladiators and duelists being driven from the arenas. Some would wander the lands far and wide, making it even as far as the consecrated snowfield, and others would go on to serve the Erdtree in some other way. These duelists would either be hired or chosen to serve as grave wardens at the catacombs and heroes' graves throughout the lands between. A job also occupied by several different reused bosses, but that's beside the point. These grave wardens mainly serve out the same role as the burial watchdogs and kind of watch over the catacombs and heroes' graves that they've been assigned to guard. These grave wardens were also given a thick cloak as a sort of symbol of their station as grave wardens. Grave Wardens themselves are a bit of a reoccurring thing when it comes to the Souls series, sort of like basilisks and giants. They almost appear in every single game, with there being a Grave Tender boss in Dark Souls 3 as well as lesser Grave Wardens that patrol places like the Cathedral of the Deep, and of course there's also the Grave Wardens of Dark Souls 2 who even have a unique NPC who wields the Crypt Blacksword, which is one of my favorite weapons in Dark Souls 2 that can help you out with a boss, but I'm digressing. This isn't the first we've seen of Grave Wardens though. Anyway, the ones that didn't find gainful employment as glorified crypt keepers were kind of forced to find another way. And for some, that was apparently just setting up shop right outside the Leyndell Colosseum and attacking anybody who walks by. For others, that was ending up in random caves, and like I already mentioned earlier, some wandered as far as the consecrated snowfield, and they're just pretty much chilling out there in the snow, which, I mean, the consecrated snowfield is seen as this place where all outcasts and misfits from the other parts of the game can go and kind of find themselves and be safe at. It's not really a safe place, and that's probably, a bad way of describing it, but you can see basically almost a little bit of every type of enemy in the consecrated snowfield. It should be noted, though, that none of the actual enemy or boss Grave Warden duelists wear cloaks at all, but the ones outside the Landell capital do drop them, so, there's that. And I believe the one in consecrated snowfield's catacombs drops the red cloak, but I do not think he wears it. But now, moving on to some of my favorite enemies in the game, the Mad Pumpkinheads. So just like the Duelists, Rotten and otherwise, the Pumpkinheads were driven from the arena as well. Now, I believe the Pumpkinheads probably filled a different type of role when it came to the arena. They weren't like maybe one-on-one fighters. Maybe they were just a big berserker that would fight multiple enemies at once. I mean, that's kind of how they look. They bear obvious resemblance to the Ogres of Dark Souls 1, the Herald Knights of Dark Souls 2, the Headless Ogres from Sekiro. I could go on. They're basically like another big enemy that From Software is known for. Their helmet, on the other hand, definitely looks like some sort of nod towards the Knights of Katarina. Siegmeyer, Siegward, Sieglind, that whole family bunch. Although, while theirs was distinctly onion-shaped, the Pumpkinheads appear to be more, pumpkin-shaped. The pumpkin helm itself is an extremely durable and solid piece of armor, as evidenced by the insane difference between damage to the head and damage to their unarmored body. Now, the inside of these pumpkin helms is pitch black, and the supposed reason they wear them is it's supposed to calm the Mad Warrior down. It helps alleviate feelings of pressure and claustrophobia, and possibly the anxiety of having to please these crowds while also fighting for their lives. The fact that the helmet blocks out pretty much everything else probably helps the warrior feel more centered and calm in the face of, whatever they may be facing. It's not even like they know, because they're blinded. But just like the other gladiators, the Mad Pumpkinheads were also driven from the Colosseums at a certain point. Although it seems nowadays most of the Pumpkinheads make their way as mercenaries, serving as heavy infantry and even standard bearers for various lords, from Godric to the Academy to Rykard and Radon. But they can be found in pretty much any of the Lord's armies. And one particularly big Pumpkinhead is either guarding Selen on behalf of her or on behalf of maybe Jaren or someone else who thinks they've imprisoned her. Even though we know she's not really imprisoned in that place. She's actually imprisoned somewhere else, but whole other story. But these Pumpkinheads carry pumpkin-shaped hammers that I don't think we can obtain. I mean, I've tried to obtain it, and I've looked online, and I don't think that they're obtainable. But they carry like a pumpkin hammer, pumpkin mace, and they also carry the chain link flail, which took me forever to fucking farm. Which, when used by the player, definitely looks like you're dragging a big-ass sausage around and flopping it at people. But I'm getting off subject. These Pumpkinheads also use their helmet as a weapon and will headbutt you and smash you into the ground with it, if you get close enough and give them the opportunity. There's also the one on the Saints Bridge, which looks like he's just playing a wicked mad air guitar, like 24/7, if you don't bother him. As I already mentioned, some of them carry the standard bearer spears. It looks like a harpoon-shaped spear with a flag on it that they'll either plant into the ground and attack you with melee, or they'll throw at you if you're far enough away from them, which is something I learned while making this video. A couple last minute things I wanted to mention is that both of the Duelist helmets have the same effect as Shiburi's Woe, which basically makes enemies aggro towards you specifically more often or more frequently. I've never actually tested them to see how well they work, but I'm sure they work fine. It's sort of like the alluring skulls from Dark Souls. But to sum it up, after the Colosseum drove all of its warriors away, many of them found employment as associates to the burial watchdogs, i.e. Grey Wardens. Some of them just wandered the lands, eventually making it as far as even the consecrated snowfield. And the Pumpkinheads sort of just spread across the lands between and became mercenaries for various different lords and armies, effectively being used as living weapons. Sort of like the Omens that are given the swords and allowed to serve in the army. They're pretty much just warrior slaves. Well, I think the Pumpkins are maybe paid for their work. It's tough to say because, they're insane and they can't really see through the pumpkin helmet. But that's really all I could find on these two types of enemies, from the Duelists, the Rotten Duelists, and the Pumpkinheads. Let me know if I missed anything, as always, because I might have. I thought I found and pulled up everything I could on these guys, but there definitely might be a few things, as always, that I missed out. But if you liked the video, please like. If you didn't like it, well, dislike it. If you like my videos in general, I would consider subscribing. That would really help me out. And my next video will either be the Fabled Demigod video, which I feel like I may be even hyping up too much. It's just me rambling on about the demigods. And it could be my Renala video next, or it could be a video about the mausoleum soldiers. I don't know, I almost butchered that word, you know. That's why you shouldn't talk on mic too long. But anyway, you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time. Be safe. Peace.
I shan't mince words with you for long. I am challenging you, sir, to a duel.
I accept.
Are you serious?
No, I accept your challenge.
Do you want time to think it over?
No.
Or...
Nope, not at all. What time were you thinking of dueling?